In this video, I'm going to show you some settings that you can change, settings that I'm going to change in this video to give yourself more FPS. One of these settings actually gave me an extra 30 FPS. I went from like 70 up to just over 100 in some cases. Now, in my previous video, there's a few people who shared some very nice commands that change how like some of the clouds and the fog works in the game. And one of those settings, in fact, both of them are huge game changers. So the first major one is actually a command that we're going to use the console for, which is the tilde key, which is next to your 1 button on your keyboard, just under escape if your keyboard's laid out like that. So press that, it will open up the command panel at the bottom there, and then you're going to go ahead and type the command. It's also in the description down below. You can see it's r.VolumetricCloud and then space 0, right? When we turn this off, it actually turns the cloud off in the distance. As you can see, then the game starts to look like this, and you can see I'm at over 100 FPS right now, which is really nice. Now, while it does give you extended visibility of everything, it does come with a few downsides, in my opinion. Like, the biggest thing for me was like the view distance, right? Like here, especially at the snow mountain, it starts to look a little like, I don't know, like I feel like it was really interesting when it had it on, right? Like this, the snow area really suffers when you turn this off. Everywhere else though, I guess it like gets rid of that like murkiness and does increase your FPS. Like my FPS just went up like by almost 20 just by turning that off. Now the other setting is actually fog. Now fog is like what you can see with that dust in there, but the biggest reason I would recommend turning fog off is, look at this, right? When you go into water in Ark Survival Ascended, it is very murky, and if you're in the ocean, it is hard to see when something like that is coming towards you. You don't even know if there's a megalodon nearby. But if we open up the console commands and we type r.VolumetricFog and we turn it to 0, also in the description down below for you to copy and paste, you'll see it turns the fog off. It does kind of like ruin a lot of the forestry, like makes it look a little green. And if you look around, it basically just gets rid of all the air particles in the game. Now, while most of you might actually prefer those particles to enhance your gameplay, if you're really struggling with FPS, these are the two things that should go first, because they're probably going to hold you back the most. And I think this fog one specifically for water, like look at the water now. I can see everywhere. I can see clearly now. Is gone. So I think for me, the fog one being off is a definite must. Now, if I hit escape and I go into my settings over here, and if you have an RTX graphics card, there was somebody who commented in my previous video saying I should turn on frame generation. This basically makes fake frames in between frames and uses your graphics card to kind of process a few things alongside your CPU. Now, at first, you might not be able to turn this on. It might say like you will have to enable hardware accelerated GPU scheduling, which if you're like me, you're like, what the frick is that? So if you go ahead and you hit Windows key and I, it will bring up this over here. Then you're going to go ahead and go to System. You're going to go to Display, and you're going to scroll down until it says Graphics Settings over here. And you'll see here it has an option to turn on Hardware Accelerated GPU Scheduling. Turn this on, and then you'll need to restart your computer right after this. So obviously go ahead and restart your PC and then open up the game, and you'll be able to turn frame generation on. This increased my FPS by 30 from like 70 to 100 immediately. So if you have this option, I highly recommend it. It feels great. And talking about some general video settings that we can change over here, you can see right now I am on high for most things over here. You can see motion blurs turned off. I have max frame rates unlocked, so it can go as high as it really can. I decided to turn light bloom back on since I was getting rid of clouds and fog. The light bloom at least gives a little bit more detail to those things in the distance with a bit more like, light. On the left-hand side over here, you can see here, these are the settings I'm using. I'm using a 4080 RTX, so if you're using that or you're using something lower, try taking all these settings and going one lower each time until you find something that suits your comfort. The one here that I'd really put lower than most is the foliage quality. I put this down to medium because, my God, when you have it on high, it's just physically too much. The grass is too much, in my opinion. It's insane. So here's what it looks like right now on medium, right? This is fine with me. If I set it back to epic, you get this like, you physically cannot, there's just so much stuff. It's just too much. There's too much grass. This is insane. How do you see anything? It's just too much. So I set this down to medium. You can even go to low. I think that's one thing that you can safely get rid of because it just kind of reduces how much foliage there is. At least that's what it looks like. And then for the interaction with foliage, I set these two multipliers and the distance limit down to 2. Not sure if this changes hugely, but it's something I barely even notice anyway. So that's what I'm using. And you can see I'm getting over 100 FPS, 110 when I stand still, 100 when I'm moving, which is pretty good. I'm happy because in my previous video I was like stuck at like just barely hitting 50. So this for me is a huge change, and I think it will be a huge change for you guys as well. And I really hope that you get the FPS that is playable for all of you. And thank you guys so much for watching this video.